who forgets to invite their own sister to a homecoming party. Not a distant cousin. Not a childhood friend. But the woman who paid for the plane ticket, booked the venue, and wired the money for the champagne without being asked. She didn't even know there was a party, until someone else accidentally let it slip. What happens when the one who's always given stops? What if the quiet backbone of a family decides to disappear, without a word, without a fight, without a trace? And what if, in her silence, she speaks louder than she ever has before? Stay. Because once the truth unravels, nothing will ever be the same again. Ivy Quinn stood in the elevator of her downtown apartment building, the grocery bag in her arms slowly numbing her fingers. She wasn't in a rush. There was nowhere urgent to be. Her weekends were usually quiet, by design. But when she opened Instagram, while waiting for the elevator to crawl up to the 20th floor, her thumb froze mid-scroll. A photo. Her brother's arms wrapped tightly around their mother, both smiling too brightly. Their father stood stiff, but proud on the side, and behind them was a sparkling banner that read, "Welcome home, Liam." Dozens of champagne flutes sparkled in the background. Plates stacked high with catered food. String lights, laughter, warmth. And she wasn't there. Not because she'd left early. Not because she'd declined. She hadn't even been invited. The caption read, "So proud of you, baby. Home where you belong." Her stomach twisted. She texted Tessa, her cousin, the only person in the family who ever seemed to genuinely see her. "Was that tonight?" The reply came almost instantly. "Oh God. Ivy. I thought you knew. They told me it was just going to be immediate family. I thought you were out of town." Immediate family. She blinked hard. Her apartment swam before her for a moment as the elevator doors slid open with a soft ding. Inside, she dropped the groceries without even taking off her coat. Her heart was pounding in her ears. She stared at her phone for a moment, then tapped to call her mother. "Hello." Elaine's voice was as calm and casual as ever. "Hi, Mom. I saw the pictures. The party for Liam." There was a pause. Just long enough to say everything. "Oh? Yes. That? Well? You're always so busy, sweetheart. We didn't want to bother you." "You didn't want to bother me?" Ivy echoed, her voice low, tight. "I mean, honestly, we assumed you wouldn't come. You're always working. Besides, it was just a small thing. Just us. Just us." That phrase landed like a slap. She forced her voice to stay steady. "I paid for his tuition, Mom." Elaine laughed, as if that was an irrelevant detail. "You helped, yes. But you always said you wanted him to succeed. That's what big sisters do, right? Big sisters. Not daughters. Not people with their own needs. Their own lives. I did his visa paperwork. Well, someone had to. Your father and I wouldn't even know where to start. I paid his rent for a year. His phone. His flight home. Even his girlfriend's flight home, Mom. Camila is practically family. You know that." Ivy's voice cracked. "And you couldn't even tell me there was a party." A silence fell on the line. Then her mother sighed. "I don't see why you're making this into such a big deal. You always act like you're above these things anyway." That was the moment something broke. Not loudly. Not explosively. Just a quiet, clean snap somewhere deep inside. That night, Ivy booked a one-way ticket aboard the luxury train that threaded its way through the Canadian Rockies. First-class cabin. No WI fee. No cell reception. No family. She didn't pack much. Just silence. And the one thing no one had ever asked if she needed, a way out. Camilla Rivers wasn't nosy. At least, that's what she always told herself. But something hadn't sat right since the night of the party. She'd noticed it in Liam's flinch when she mentioned how expensive the food must have been. In the way he changed the subject when she asked about the flights. In how he said don't worry about it one too many times. So when she passed by Liam's laptop left open on the kitchen counter the next morning, and saw the screen still glowing with spreadsheets and folders, she hesitated only a second. The folder was titled Family Budget. But inside, the truth had nothing to do with budgeting. Bank statements. Transfer logs. Auto pays. Her eyes scanned line after line, her stomach sinking with each click. The family account Liam always said their parents helped fund. It was in Ivy's name. Every monthly deposit came from Ivy's personal Chase account. Tuition payments. Rent for Liam's apartment in London. A $678 phone bill from when Liam lost his SIM card. Even Camilla's own round-trip ticket from Heathrow was there, time-stamped and tagged under Gift C. Her breath caught. She opened another file, this one more carefully hidden, buried under layers of innocuous folder names. It was titled, Ivy Contingency Plan. She clicked. The document opened with a line that made her skin crawl. If Ivy finds out, remind everyone how independent she is. Use her words against her. Say she insisted. Each bullet point after that read like a blueprint for manipulation. Camilla's hand trembled as she backed away from the laptop. Hey, Liam called, walking in, brushing croissant flakes off his hoodie. You okay? She turned to him slowly. You told me your sister didn't want to be involved. She doesn't, he said too quickly. I mean, she's always been like that. Cold. Career-focused. It's her choice. Did she choose to pay your rent? To fly me here? He blinked. Cam? It's not what you think. Really? Her voice broke. Because it looks like you've been leeching off someone who loved you enough to never say no. Liam's jaw tightened. She's my sister. She owes me. No, Camilla snapped. She doesn't owe you a damn thing. She left before she could start crying. Packed a bag. Slammed the door so hard the champagne glasses from last night's party rattled in the sink. That evening, Ivy's phone lit up inside the narrow mahogany compartment of the train. She turned it on only out of habit. One message. From Tessa. I'm so sorry. I didn't know the extent. I should have said something sooner. Please forgive me. Then another. From Camilla. Just 2 words. Thank you. A few minutes later, the Quinn family group chat, rarely warm, always efficient, imploded in real time. Messages flew. Elaine, who removed Liam from the account. Harold, what's going on? Camilla, you should all be ashamed. Tessa, I'm out. Elaine, this is not the place for drama. Camilla, then maybe you should have thought twice before throwing your daughter away. The chat went silent. And then, one last message buzzed in. A private one. From Liam. We need to talk. Ivy stared at the words for a long time. She didn't reply. Outside the train window, the mountains rose like silent witnesses. The signal blinked out again. The screen went dark. And for the first time in years, Ivy let it stay that way. The Quinn home looked exactly the same. A manicured lawn. A polished brass knocker. White shutters that had never once peeled. From the outside, It was a picture of order, of stability. Ivy stood on the porch a moment longer than necessary, breathing in the scent of boxwood and denial. The door opened before she knocked. Her mother, Elaine Quinn, didn't smile. She folded her arms, leaning against the frame as if the act of opening the door had already cost her something. "So," she said coolly, "you decided to come around." Ivy stepped inside without replying. The house was warm. Too warm. Like it always was, suffocating under the weight of good intentions and unspoken debts. Her father sat in his usual chair, reading glasses perched at the end of his nose, a glass of scotch in hand. He didn't look up. Liam was already at the dining table. No trace of guilt on his face. Only annoyance. Ivy took a deep breath and placed a thin envelope on the table in front of them. "What's this?" Liam asked, arms crossed. "Receipts," Ivy said simply. "Bank transfers. Tuition payments. Flights. Rent. Groceries. Visa processing. Over the last 4 years." She sat down. Calm. Measured. But inside, her ribs felt like they were made of glass. Elaine scoffed. "Honestly, Ivy. This again? Are we really turning this into a courtroom?" "No," Ivy said quietly. "I'm just returning the truth to its rightful place." Liam leaned back, feigning boredom. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You didn't have to help. You chose to." "No, Liam," she said, eyes sharp. "I chose to protect you. I chose to give you what no one ever gave me, a chance. But you didn't just accept it. You built a life out of my silence." "You sound jealous," he shot back. "Just admit it. You're bitter. You've always been stuck in your job, your apartment, alone. You needed to feel useful." Elaine's voice cut in. "Don't talk to your sister that way." But Ivy laughed. A short, hollow sound. "It's fine, Mom. Let him say it. It's probably the first honest thing he's said in months." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet. "Set it next to the envelope. This is what broke Camila," she said. "The Ivy contingency plan. A list of excuses in case your lies caught up to you. You were preparing to spin me into the villain long before I ever found out." Her father finally looked up. "Liam, is this true?" Liam didn't answer. But the color in his face said enough. Elaine exhaled sharply. "You didn't come to heal this family, Ivy. You came to tear it apart." Ivy stood. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I didn't come here to fix anything. I came to end it." She looked at them, each one. The mother who only ever loved her strength. The father who only ever saw her as duty. The brother who only ever saw her as a wallet. "You keep calling me the sister. But I was never the sister," she said, voice steady. "I was the funding. I was the fallback. I was the F-King ATM." The room went silent. Ivy walked to the mantel. The family photo sat in a heavy silver frame, everyone smiling, pressed close together. But her image had been cropped, slightly, half her face missing from the edge. She picked it up, flipped it over, and set it face down. Then she turned back one last time. "You don't get to ask for what you never gave." And with that, she walked out. No one followed. The first thing Ivy did after returning to her apartment wasn't pack. It was purge. She opened her banking app, scrolled to the family account, and with one quiet tap, cancelled the shared card she'd set up for Liam years ago. Another tap, Netflix logged out on all devices. Then Spotify. Then the cloud storage she'd been unknowingly paying for on their behalf. She ended every auto payment, every subscription, every invisible lifeline. No one noticed right away. But they would. The silence in her apartment was no longer lonely, it was clean. Sacred. A week later, she was gone again. This time not in retreat, but in reclamation. She found a cabin tucked away in the Rockies. No signal. No noise. Just the hush of wind through pines, the crackle of firewood, and the sound of her own breath not being interrupted. The cabin had no mirror in the main room, and Ivy liked it that way. It gave her space to forget the version of herself she'd maintained for others, the composed provider, the strong older sister, the one who never asked anything in return. Here, she woke up slow. Ate when she was hungry. Read books for no one but herself. She learned the names of birds. Let the sun warm her skin. And when she cried, it wasn't from pain, it was release. But the world didn't leave her alone for long. One morning, after hiking down to the nearest lodge to catch up on emails, her phone lit up with a familiar tone. A text from her father. "Your brother's not doing well. He won't leave his room. Might be depressed. You happy now?" Ivy stared at the screen. Then another ping. A notification from Facebook. Her mother had posted. "Some people mistake distance for growth. Just remember, family is forever, even if some forget what that means." The post had no names, but the subtext was loud enough to scream. She scrolled through the comments, friends and distant relatives chiming in with, "Sending hugs. They'll come around eventually. Praying for peace in your heart." Not one message asking if Ivy was okay. Not one call. Not one voice that said, "We understand why you left." Because they didn't. And they never would. She closed the app. Outside, snow began to fall in slow, heavy flakes. Ivy stepped onto the porch, wrapped in a thick wool sweater, and held a mug of coffee that steamed in the cold. She wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Freedom, Ivy realized, wasn't always loud. It didn't arrive with fanfare, or fireworks, or the final word in an argument. Sometimes, it looked like standing on a frozen deck at dawn, coffee in hand, and realizing, for the first time, you didn't owe anyone a response. She wasn't heartbroken anymore. She wasn't even angry. She was free. That morning, while going through the gallery on her phone, she paused on a photo she'd taken weeks ago. The train window framed a vast wilderness of snowy peaks and thick evergreens. The sun was setting in soft amber light, casting gold over the steel of the tracks, like the whole world was in motion, and she was right where she was supposed to be. She opened Instagram, took a breath, and posted it. The caption was simple. "If they won't put you on the guest list, build your own destination." She set the privacy to public. Closed the app. Forgot about it. But the internet didn't. The post spread quickly, first among her acquaintances, then shared by wellness accounts, then by pages with names like Boundaries Healing and Elder Sister Diaries. Comments poured in. "This hit hard. I needed this today." Tagging every girl who's ever been the invisible backbone. By the end of the day, it had tens of thousands of likes. Hundreds of shares. Her inbox flooded with strangers thanking her for putting into words something they'd lived for years, but had never dared to say aloud. And then came the reactions from the people who knew. Elaine's Facebook went private within 24 hours. Harold emailed her for the first time in years. No greeting. No warmth. Just, "Take it down. This isn't fair to the family." Liam messaged her too. One long paragraph of guilt, justification, then a final line. You really think social media is the place for this? She didn't answer. Because it wasn't about them anymore. It never was. It was about claiming space in a world that had always expected her to shrink. It was about putting her name on something that didn't ask for permission. It was about healing out loud, in full view of the people who once taught her to disappear quietly. Sometimes, late at night when the fire burned low and the wind sighed through the pines, Ivy would wonder, just briefly. Maybe one day, Liam will apologize. Maybe he'd realize what he'd taken. Maybe he'd understand that silence was never the same as consent. That love, given endlessly without being asked for, still had limits. But then the thought would pass. Because she didn't need his apology. Not anymore. It wouldn't rewrite the nights she'd stayed up comparing flight prices for his girlfriend. It wouldn't undo the times her mother had looked through her as if strength meant she didn't bleed. It wouldn't change the photo frame she'd been cut out of. What she needed, she'd already found. Not in them. In herself. Ivy no longer built bridges that only she crossed. She stopped waiting at the shoreline with open arms and unanswered texts. She started building walls, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Walls that didn't shut the world out, but reminded her where she ended and others began. Boundaries with locks. And keys she didn't hand out lightly. She no longer flinched when people called her too distant. She wasn't distant, she was discerning. She no longer feared being misunderstood. She finally understood herself. She was done carrying weight that wasn't hers. Done translating neglect into they didn't mean it. Done shrinking to keep the peace. She wasn't the strong sister anymore. Wasn't the fallback. Wasn't the fixer. She was simply Ivy. No longer performing love by sacrifice. But living love by truth. And in the quiet of the mountain air, where no one asked her to explain, she breathed in the freedom of not being anyone's foundation. She didn't need to hold the family together. She only needed to hold herself. And she did. Sometimes, to find yourself, you have to walk away from the place called family, the place that only knows how to take, but never learned how to love right. Ivy didn't leave. She simply stopped sacrificing in silence. And when she stopped being the strong big sister, she finally started being herself.